Good day, everybody, and welcome back to Tech Talk. Today we're going to be doing a review of the Steinhart Ocean 1 Vintage Military, and this is the latest iteration. I believe it was first released in November of 2017. So this is the latest version, version 3.0, which I believe is the fourth iteration. There was a version 1, version 2, version 2.5, and now this is the version 3. The differences between the versions are the sapphire crystal. If you see, there is no beveled edge on this particular one. On the other versions, they all have a beveled edge. And the dial is much darker than the previous versions, which all used a grayish antique type finish. So normally on Tech Talk I talk electronics. Today we're going to be doing a review on something a little more old-fashioned, mechanical watches. So when you are buying mechanical watches, there are a lot of choices. There are small companies called micro brands, and then there are the big companies like Seiko, Glycine, Omega, Rolex, etc. Those well-known brands have obviously been around forever and have a reputation of quality and reliability, which is why people like them. But they're not always the most affordable, and some of the iconic designs you simply can't even buy anymore, or if you do, they're just prohibitively expensive. This is one of those type of watches. This is an homage of the Rolex 5517 or 5513, which was produced for the UK military. And I believe only 1,200 pieces were ever produced, which makes their cost skyrocket to around $100,000 to $200,000, depending on the quality of the piece that you have and the original components that it is using. So for myself, that is a completely unobtainable cost, and even if I could afford it, there's no way I would feel comfortable wearing something that costs so much on my wrist. So let's get a little close-up of the dial for you. This is called the Maxi Dial, and if you look at the iterations of the 5517, this was the last produced dial. It's called the Maxi Dial. And although this looks a little bit more yellow in my camera, the tint of the lume is more peach colored. It is a very light peach. So it really matches the color of the 1979 dial. So again, it is an homage, but there are some key differences between this and the Rolex. And I'm showing a few of those to you right now. The crown is different than the original Rolex. The crown guards are also different. On the Rolex, they are a rolling kind of style, not the straight edge that you see on the Steinhart here, and there is no brushing. It's all a high polished finish on the Rolex, and you can see there it is brushed on the top of the Steinhart. The other major difference is the lugs. On the Rolex, you have, again, curved lugs that go down quite a bit more. These are more straight out, and then they're just kind of cut off. And the other thing is the center link here. On the Rolex, it is a solid piece that protrudes out and, again, goes down. So it's a much more curved design. When you have the Rolex type watches, those lugs really extend far out, and I don't like that design. I prefer this. However, I don't prefer the ends. I would like it to look more like the original Rolex. The other note here is this coin edge bezel is brushed and not polished. So those would be the main differences. The case back is obviously different, and I'll show that to you as well. And then the clasp is going to be a lot different. So those are the main differences between a Rolex and the Homage. And you know, a lot of people don't like Homage watches, and that's fine. You know, everybody has their opinion. But personally, like I said, I wouldn't even want to own the original because it is so cost prohibitive, and I would feel rather guilty wearing a house on my wrist, essentially. But that's just my own personal opinion. I'm not going to dig anyone who can afford such a thing and actually owns it. So one of the things about this watch that is pretty unique is the components that it comes with, the build quality, and the cost. So it is not a cheap watch by any means, but it's also not a super expensive watch in its class for the specifications that it has. And what I mean by that, it has an ETA 2824 movement, which is the Labrador grade, not the base or standard grade. So it's a little more accurate, and the components are a little more robust. It's essentially obviously the same movement, but there are different tiers, and this would be the middle tier. There's a top grade, standard grade on the bottom, and then the Labrador right in the middle. A lot of watch companies that use automatic movements in this price range usually use either a Miyota 9015 or the Seiko NH35. The Seiko NH35 is a pretty basic movement. It's perfectly serviceable, reliable, and fairly accurate, but it is not a high beat or a higher beat movement. It's still a high beat since it's in the 21,000 beats per minute, but this is 28,800. As you can see, that second hand just goes so smoothly around the dial. And it's a little bit more accurate as well. So to me, that's an important feature, is the movement of the watch. It's also a brand that has been around forever, and the design of this movement is extremely well-known, reliable, and serviceable by almost any watchmaker. So I wanted to show you something that I did not see on another review, which is the luminescence of the watch. Let me just turn this off. So you can see the lume is quite good. I still have a lot of ambient light here, and you can see just how bright those markers are. And I've had this overnight, and I can confirm that the lume is definitely good. It lasts throughout the entire night. Now, the initial brightness wears off really quickly. It's not like the BG W9 lume, which just really glows a long time for a very consistent level. This has an extreme brightness, and then it drops off really fast, but then the remaining glow does last for quite a while. So again, the double domed sapphire crystal is really nice. As you can see, you have very high visibility, and I like that better than the bevel because there's nothing that detracts from this dial. There is more reflection on a domed surface than flat, so sometimes that can be a little bit of an annoyance. As you can see there's a reflection, but overall I really like the choice that they made with this. It's different than most watches, especially at this price point. Again, this watch is just over $400 with shipping from Germany, and generally, depending on which day you order it, you'll get it within about 2 to 3 days from the ship date that Steinhart gives. Mine, unfortunately, was a little, had to wait over the weekend, but that's not such a big issue. So I'm going to pause this video for just a moment and show you what it looks like on my wrist and show you the back and the clasp as well. I had about 3 extra links on mine, so it definitely can fit on a very large wrist. Okay, back with you guys. So this is the back of the case. So you can see it is engraved nicely. Doesn't have too much information on there, just Swiss automatic movement, sapphire crystal, stainless steel, Steinhart Ocean 1, and the depth rating. And here is the clasp, just your standard metal clasp. Has a lot of nice micro adjustments, so you can really adjust well. Polished solid steel scissors, and no diver's extension, which some people may not like. I don't really care since I don't dive with this watch. And you can see the finishing on the bracelet. It's really nice brushing, and then the polishing, and these are thick links. This bracelet's rather heavy. Now I'm going to pause the video one more time and put this on my wrist. So that's what it looks like on my 7 1/4 inch wrist. I find it to fit just perfectly. And again, I really think for the cost of this watch, you'd be hard pressed to find something nicer. You know, the dial design is what really attracted me. I love the sword hands, the military, the MOD hands, and the Maxi Rolex style dial with no date. I kind of would appreciate if, since this is a modern adaptation of the 5517, if they would have put the date between the 4 and the 5, since this movement has a date wheel and you can hear it click. That would have just been a nice, I think, you know, if they used a white on black background for the date wheel, it would blend right in and you'd still get that functionality. It's not necessary, you know, the dial is super legible, as you can see, even at extreme angles. It does sit up on your wrist a bit because of the design, even though it's only 13 millimeters thick. I don't think that's including the domed sapphire crystal, but you know, it doesn't sit too high. I think it's really well balanced. And again, this bracelet's really kind of heavy and thick, but because it tapers to 18 millimeters, it feels really comfortable. And because of the weight, it balances the case well, so it doesn't slide around on your wrist like some heavy watches will do. So I like that. I like the solid steel case back. Really, the other dial, or the other interesting thing about this particular model is the bezel. The aluminum insert has markings going all the way around from 0 to 60. Unlike most of the Rolex style, they only go to the 15, and then the Seiko designs will go to 20, and then the rest is just every 5-minute mark. So that's a different design again, the military-inspired design. So I think that's all of the things I can say. You know, 300-meter water resistance at a 2824, double domed sapphire crystal with internal anti-reflective coating, screw-down crown. For just over $400 delivered is pretty fantastic. The dial does change color depending on the lighting. You know, it looks pretty black here, but if I'm in bright sun, it looks more gray. So it's like a dark charcoal black. It's not a full black. But again, that kind of goes to the nostalgia with the antiqued lume. Personally, I would have rather preferred just standard white BG W9 lume with the Maxi case, or I mean the Maxi Dial. But I understand why they did what they did. And the luminescence is still quite acceptable. Steinhart just did an amazing job. I really, this is one of my favorite watches for the cost. It's going to be a keeper for a long time. I have another Steinhart, the Ocean One Titanium, which again is another fantastic piece. So my opinion with Steinhart has been really good. Their customer service is pretty responsive, and their timepieces are absolutely fabulous for the money, and if you like homage designs. Now they have other designs, pilot watches. Again, those are going to be homages to the classic Flieger designs, so they're not the only ones to do that. I mean, you even have Archimede and Stoa that use very similar pilot watch designs. They're basically, you know, copying from a template, you know, from World War II or pre-World War II. So, you know, people that, again, complain about homages, I just think, you know, it depends on the company and the watch that you're getting. Some companies are just blatant copies in every sense of the word, and their quality isn't really that good. I don't appreciate those too much. You know, there is one other watch that I'm interested in, the Jenault, that's made in the United States with foreign components. The problem I have with that watch is it's around $1,000 even with discounts, and it doesn't have an ETA movement. It has some hybrid Chinese movement that they have kind of assembled themselves in time. So, you know, it's quality, but the longevity of it is an unknown. So with this watch, you're getting a better movement at, you know, almost a third of the cost, especially if their retail cost around $1,300. It's literally a third of the cost, or maybe even a quarter. And you're just getting a fantastic watch. So this is the newest iteration. Like I said, the differences are just primarily the dial and the crystal. And I like the changes that they made. I really do, because I have the beveled edge on my Titan, and I do like that beveled edge. It's nice, but I kind of like this just domed crystal a little bit better. So that's my take on it. I'll show you guys the crown. Sorry. So it has a signed Steinhart crown. And yeah, that's about it. If you have any questions, you know, feel free to let me know. I'm pretty knowledgeable in these things. I've been collecting watches for years, about the same amount of time I've been into computers and electronics. So I have some knowledge on these things, although I'm no expert by any means. And if you want to get a Steinhart, there's a couple different ways to do so. You can go straight to their website, which is what I would suggest highly. There's also another competitive, well, just another company called Gannemann Watches. And you can get some exclusive models through them, but I recommend sticking to the manufacturer. You just can't go wrong with Steinhart themselves. So that's my review for the Steinhart Ocean One Vintage Military, the newest iteration, the November 2017 release. I hope you've enjoyed this review. Look for a few other reviews coming up, such as this particular model, which is the Vostok Amphibia. And this is another 1970s design. It's actually an exact, not replica, it is the exact watch that they built in the 70s. With a little bit of upgrades. It has superluminova compared to the whatever phosphorus type luminescence that they used before, which was pretty terrible. It has an automatic movement, again no date, very legible, hexalite crystal, and and a bezel that goes in both directions. And this has got an in-house movement, so Vostok makes their own watch movements. Everything about this watch is completely produced in-house by Vostok, except for the strap, of course. So that'll be a review coming up, just to show you. This watch retails for $103, which I think is a fantastic value. So that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this review. Please stay tuned for more. And once I get some more tech toys, I will be doing some more reviews on that. My next review in the tech world will be for a new mobile device. I'm waiting for the OnePlus 6 to come out. I believe that's going to be my next mobile phone. Possibly a Xiaomi phone, but I think I'm going to get the OnePlus 6 when it comes out. So that's it, guys. Hope you've enjoyed the review. Until next time.